What is up, Spiceheads? Welcome back to another episode of On the Air, the show that's all about getting IT pros and tech vendors together to geek out over technology. It's been a little while. I missed you guys. I hope you guys are doing well, enjoying your summer. We got another great show for you guys today. We're going to be talking all about how every PC decision is actually a security decision. So for more on this, we're going to hear from our panel that you guys just met. But let's get to know them a little bit more before we get started. What do you guys say? All right, batting first, coming to us all the way from the West Coast, a.k.a. the Best Coast. You guys know him in the community as Brian NCA, or as Chelsea once said, Briannica. Brian Fulmer. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Brian, for those who haven't met you before, do you mind telling us a little about yourself and what you do?
I'm the IT manager for a construction company. We also do manufacturing, and we have a bunch of different divisions internal to us, so we have a lot of moving parts, and that keeps me busy and entertained at the same time.
All right, wonderful. So you're from not the coast of California, but inland, so normally I would feel bad about pulling you away from the beautiful summers into the sweltering desert that's Austin, but not too much of an adjustment for you.
We have a sweltering desert, and we have even more cows than you have here. So.
Which is weird if you think about it. But well, thanks for joining us today, Brian. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks.
Our next guest coming to us from HP, another returning panelist. Let everyone please welcome back Mr. Rick Griencewic. Rick, welcome back.
Thanks, Justin.
Rick, for those who haven't met you before, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at HP?
Sure. I'm 6'7", 320 pounds. Oh, you don't want to talk about that.
Vertical leap, bench press.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not as high as what it used to be. But no, I'm one of the U.S. security advisors on the HP category team, which is the product team. And really my job is to go around and talk about security, evangelize HP's security strategy, really dive a little deeper with our customers, with our sales departments, really try to help get that message out and then make sure everyone understands it.
All right, very cool. Well, thank you for joining us as well. Of course, what would On the Air be with you guys, the viewers? So for more on that, we are going to kick things over to our favorite chat desk host and yours, Miss Chelsea. Chelsea, what's up?
Hey, thank you, Justin. That's right. It's me, Chelsea, your chat desk host. Per the usual, you have questions and we have answers, so be sure to get those questions into Q&A. And if I ask your questions live on the air, you'll be in the running for some super cool swag and prizes from HP. Do y'all want to know what the swag is today?
Yeah.
Alrighty, our swag giveaway, which is going out to a few lucky Spiceheads whose questions I ask live on the air, is this handy dandy HP Universal Thunderbolt docking station. Now, as you can see, this is compact. It's audio enabled. It has the Bang & Olufsen speakers, which are super powerful, super cool. You've got plenty of ports back here, and again, it's universal, so it's really compatible with multiple types of PCs and laptops. This is going out to, again, a few lucky Spiceheads whose questions I ask live, so be sure to get your questions in the Q&A if you want to have a chance at snagging one of these bad boys. And then our grand prize, which is going out to two very lucky attendees today, that is a 32-inch Omen LED monitor. Now, this is for all of you gamers out there. I mean, I get you could do regular IT work on it, of course, but I mean, this is really for the gamer at heart. Again, we're giving away two of these to two very lucky viewers, so be sure to stick around till the end of the show to find out who the grand prize is going to. Coming up later in the show, we're bringing back one of our favorite segments, which is our Endpoint Security Fantasy Draft. Now, during this draft, our guests, Brian and Rick, are going to take turns choosing their favorite solutions until they have their winning team. Later in the show, I'm also going to share the results from the community poll that I had up earlier this week, where I asked you, the Spiceheads, what is your first round pick for an endpoint security solution? So we'll reveal those results later on. And before I pass this back over to Justin, I just have my PSA. Just a quick reminder to everyone that the community guidelines apply to chat. So while we want you to keep it spicy, we definitely would love for you to keep it professional. And for those of you that really, aren't into chat, please feel free to come in and say hey to everyone and then close it on out if it's not something you want to be a part of. That's all that I've got for now. So Justin, I'm going to send this back over to you and our panelists so we can get this conversation going.
All right, thanks guys. Make sure to get those questions into chat. We'll be getting your questions later on in the show, and we'll be announcing the winner of those prizes as well. Well, let's go ahead and get started into it. Rick, I wanted to start with you. it's been the last few years now, but really even since the start of the year, it seems every single week there's some new headline about some new breach, some new hack, some new data leak. Would you say, in your opinion, that these attacks are becoming more and more common, or are we just paying more attention to it? And do you see any kind of common threads or trends that are linking them all together?
Yeah, I definitely see some trends happening right now. If you looked at previous years, phishing was really the big thing. Ransomware last year really made a big push. And I think this year what we're seeing is a level of sophistication, especially from like the state-sponsored attacks that are going on right now, where hardware is really the target, and that's the prize. If they can get into there, then they can do whatever they want. So we see a lot of activity by Russia and China, and I suppose we could even throw the U.S. in there as well. But I think that's making things real interesting.
And would you say, in your opinion, that the companies that you've worked with are all on the top of their game? They've got everything, all their stuff together, and that these attackers are still getting through? Or is it still that there's quite a lot of fundamental misses that organizations today
if that was the case, where they were all buttoned up, I wouldn't have a job. So I would like to say yes, but no. What I find out is roughly half of the companies that I talk to actually have a cybersecurity procedure playbook in place. So that's step one, from an IT perspective. But even if you back it up a little bit, just the education programs that are required today to keep companies safe, really, we have a long way to go.
And users obviously are the weak link in security. Brian, working in construction, how would you say, what are some of the challenges you experience with such a specific type of user base, and how do you manage it?
Well, very technical user, they're very capable and skilled in whatever division they're in, whatever trade they're in. And you take very smart people who are doing very difficult things, and then you throw on top, now you have to use a computer because all of our information is now moving through that, and it adds to their workload. So it's not, I don't think users, or my folks especially, are in any way willfully exposing themselves to risk. But if you don't think about it, it's a problem. I mean, it's nothing that they're doing intentionally. It's just it's how dangerous things are out there.
Well, I was gonna, and it's not like they're not technical, because they're out there operating machines that Rick and I have no business being near. But at the same time, you've done the training, but they're also worried about things like physical safety and trying to keep people safe. To try to add ransomware and phishing on top of it, it's a lot to ask them. And so, do you feel like you look for solutions that are, as easy in the flow and invisible for your users as possible? Yeah,
security always has to take a back seat to user friendliness. That's what Rick is dealing with when he's talking to corporations. It's perceived as being overhead. It's perceived as being things that are keeping me from getting what my task accomplished. So it's incumbent on me and my folks to do everything we can to put things in place that aren't intrusive to the user. The user training is important, but if training worked for everything, then there'd be no safety incidents. If training worked for everything, there'd be no security incidents. So putting the things in place to protect people from themselves is kind of a big part of my job.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think what we're seeing is a lot of these procedures aren't being put in place until after an event has happened. And at that point, they become very reactionary in terms of getting these things, getting the C-suite support that's needed to fund these types of programs. I think that awareness is starting to change. I think we're getting a lot of CISOs in place, separate security organizations, but for smaller companies, mid-sized companies, it's still a challenge. So it'd be nice if people would look at it more proactively instead of reactively after a breach or an event happens.
And so, at HP, that's one of the things that it seems like you guys are trying to focus on on is being proactive. So it's not like some of these security features, which we're going to discuss, they're included. They're not add-ons, and they're also like invisible to the users in a lot of ways. Like for example, let's take SureStart, which is one that we've talked about on the show before. But the latest version, this is something that you guys keep iterating on in order to make it safer for your users. Can you talk a little bit about what's new with SureStart?
Yeah, we're talking about built-in, not bolted on. That's kind of our little phrase there. And what we mean by that is when you look at security today, it's really software based. What we're doing is taking a hardware approach to it. So hardware enforced, hardened security. And it starts with our endpoint security controller, which is really the foundation of our entire security platform. The endpoint security controller is proprietary to HP. And it is, again, what really fuels our products like SureStart. And when you talk about SureStart specifically, this is providing hardware-enforced BIOS protection. So if you have a problem with your BIOS, either you're under attack or it's a self-inflicted, you don't know what you did, it's going to not only detect that event, but it's going to recover and self-heal that BIOS. So I think we talked about it back in February when I was here, but I actually had one of the first incidents that our IT team had seen in Houston, and my system crashed, and first thing they ask you to do is power it on. So I hit the power button, and boom, it says your system has been corrupted. So you go through all those emotions. Well, what did I do, or am I being attacked? And then SureStart, it said, don't worry, basically. It didn't say don't worry, but
that's very reassuring.
Don't worry, be happy, takeaway. It counted down from 15. We got to 201. The screen went blank. It came back up, and everything was okay. So if you look at that it didn't require any of Brian's interaction or Brian's team, and so from a hardware perspective, that's very valuable as opposed to my BIOS recovery is above the OS. And now when it detects something, I have to either flash, get the unit in, flash the BIOS, replace the BIOS chip, something. There's some interaction that's required by IT at that point. So really, it's not only security, but it's serviceability too, or making your better ROI, better return on investment.
Yes.
Letting you focus on other things that are more important to you than having to worry about that.
Again, being proactive and not reactive.
Brian, you've got foremen and other business users out in construction sites that are hundreds of miles away?
Up to, yeah.
Yeah. So what would it be like, without something like a self-healing BIOS if you did have a BIOS corruption out in the field?
They get to wait until just stop all your paperwork, your dailies, and your timesheets, because all the guys, they don't need to be paid while your computer's down. So
I'm sure that would go over real well.
Yeah, it would be very bad.
Yeah.
But FedEx loves us because we have to overnight stuff. That's kind of a drag, and so having things that are self-maintaining in the field, that's a hugely desirable idea. If you do self-maintaining printers too, then
right, and that's a good point. You were talking about in the pre-show. You were talking about printers and people in the field.
Construction runs on paper, and we have situations where our job trailers are properly set up because they would be, and we have people coming in to use the MFPs, and HP stand up very well in the field. Thank you. The issue of people coming in and out of my environment. If people walked in to my our physical plant that way, we'd have a problem. But when it's a job trailer in the field, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and
the subs come in and they've got to get something, or they want an RFI. So people use our gear, and it's good neighbor policy, but it freaks me out.
Right, and we talk about PC security, and that's kind of the focus of this thing. But you got to look at endpoint security across all the endpoints, and a printer is an endpoint.
Yeah.
And it's one that people don't think about. It's very low on the priority list. But in your situation, Brian, where you've got people coming in and out, you don't know what they're doing. So you need to have those protections in place, and HP, in addition to putting SureStart in our printers, our commercial printers. We also have some manageability and security policy features that enable you to take control of that.
Now, another feature that's, I think, relatively new is Sure Recover, which is the ability to basically re-image a machine, even if they're not,
Exactly.
in your exact vicinity. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what folks ought to know about?
This is actually one of the features that we get the best response to when I'm out talking to customers. And in the scenario where we're talking about your guys in the field, and if something goes wrong, like the BIOS gets corrupt and the system goes down, Sure Start helps them. Well, if you're out in the field and your system blue screens and you're down in the field, we already talked about the scenario, right? You have they have to call you. You have to either decide, I want to send them another unit, or basically they're dead in the water. What Sure Recover does is provide a way to automate, provide a self-service to OS and image restoration. We launched that in 2018, this year in February with the 800 series G5s, and that requires a cable connection. But basically, the endpoint security controller is talking to the network, and there's an agent that hooks it together. It either goes to HP.com or it can go to our partner customer's site, and it will automatically re-image the system, get you back up and going. So it enables those two to talk. And then with just a couple months ago when we announced the 1030, we actually have an embedded solution. So now that means I can cut the cord. I don't have to carry that cable. Really? And so that same agent that's in there, that required the cable, now I can do it from inside the system. So.
And is this just an HP image that you guys provide, or what if we've got custom images that we use for our users?
Well, if you are a larger company and you want your custom image there, it will take that custom image. It'll replace it with that, because that path is directly to your location, to your company. If you're a smaller business, don't have a lot of IT staff, it'll go back to HP.com, and then it will take the most current version of the image, and those are signed, certified. They're good images, and then it will use that.
Now, Brian, do you consider something? Is this something that you would consider to be a security feature? Or is it really more just like a maintenance?
Sure, because from a security standpoint, if you have someone that's compromised, a blue screen, if it's a hardware failure, send them an SSD, maybe, probably not. But for someone out in the field who's exposed, who gets hosed by some kind of malware, if it's ransomware, it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter what it is. When you have a compromised machine, you don't want it connecting to your network. You're not going to leave it compromised. You may remediate it. You may fix what's immediately broke, but you're going to pave it. You're going to flatten that machine. You're going to re-image it from scratch. You don't want any possibility of, oh, well, I thought it was fixed, but we let it back on, and now it's spreading stuff out. So nuke it from orbit is now an option for someone in the field, which is a huge deal to me. In fact, when we talked last, I'm testing right now a new mobile hotspot that has a hardware Ethernet jack in it. So for data at a job trailer, having everything wireless is wireless printing is not ideal. But also, once that became apparent that, the 800 series still has hardware Ethernet ports.
Right.
Thank you.
That was by design, based on feedback from customers like you.
I use an 820 G3, I was showing Rick. So that being able to have the job trailer on hardwired Ethernet makes re-imaging a valid option. It's trivial now. That's a standard AT&T provided device. So all the parts are in place already.
Now, Rick, it's not just that we've got users that are out in remote construction sites. They're also traveling, which is kind of another set of issues in and of itself, in coffee shops and on airplanes. Just the other day, I was on a plane, and I had someone next to me using a laptop, not HP, one of those other guys, and was pulling up company email and company databases and his own personal bank account, all within my eyesight. Can you talk to us a little bit more about visual hacking and some of the dangers that you see as associated with it?
Yeah, I think visual hacking is probably the most underrated, low-tech form of hacking.
I wasn't even
out
trying
there.
to hack him. He was.
And it's highly effective. 9 out of 10 visual hacking attempts are successful. I think what's scary is 6 out of 10 will recognize they're being hacked, but only 4 out of 10 do something about it. So, I think the average attack, you can be fully compromised in under 15 minutes. So if the guy's going through his presentation on the plane and you're taking pictures with your smartphone and then sending them off, it's a big deal. And you think about medical and personal information, personally identifiable information, and financial institutions, and anyone that's on the road. I mean, think of your CEOs, your salespeople who have confidential information. You want to be able to protect it. And up until we introduced SureView, the only way you could protect it was with an external privacy screen, right? That you had to tape on. They get gunked up, they get lost, on, off. I mean, just not really convenient. Does the job, but just not convenient. And really, for the price of 1 or 2 of those, depending on the size, you can get SureView. And SureView is an integrated privacy display that basically reduces that viewing angle, so that if I'm sitting on a plane and you're sitting right next to me, which we'll have a little bit elbow and shoulder room problems there, but you won't be able to see what I'm working on. So
How is that done? Just through lighting, or?
It's what we're doing is we're actually changing the molecular structure of the pixels themselves, of the liquid crystal of the LCD. So it does it in a way that it bends it this way, and then that reduces the angle. And then when you hit the F2, and it basically enable it by hitting an F2 button. F2 it's on, F2 it's off. So it's very, very easy to do. But it just takes it, moves it on, moves it off. But if you're in IT, you can also control that. You can say, okay, I want this on for this person all the time. Now, so that's a plus too.
That's cool.
But this visual hacking thing, again, highly underrated. I don't know if you guys run into it or not, but I see it all the time.
Is HP going to eventually move this out of the EliteBook and down to the ProBook series?
Yes.
Because I can afford a lot more ProBooks.
There's a softball.
Yeah.
Yes, we've just moved it into the ProBook line on the notebook side, and it's now available on the ProBook 640.
So we're going to get BIOS protection and visual hacking protection in the ProBook series.
Yes.
Okay. I have a bunch of machines to replace between now and end of life for Windows 7, so that's...
I know someone that can help you.
I know a guy. I know a guy.
All right, one of the last things I wanted to cover before we go to our next segment, you talked about phishing at the beginning of the show. And of course, I think every organization should at least have some sort of provisions against that. Obviously, antivirus, web filter. But you guys are taking it another step further at HP and actually sandboxing the browsers from a hardware perspective in order to add that other layer of protection. Can you talk to us a little about that?
Yes, and actually there's 2 things I want to touch on. First one, what you're referring to, Justin, is SureClick. And SureClick is really a virtualized browser that sits above your integrated browser on your system. And what it does is it takes each site that you go to and puts it in its own separate container. And by putting it in that container, it can't infect the other open tabs on your system, nor can it infect your PC. And really, that was SureClick 1. What we did in SureClick 2, which we announced here in February, is we added another layer of protection, a level of protection by protecting PDFs, because I'm one of those guys, I'm always clicking on PDFs to download this report, and I probably, I love to download them. That's how I get my information. Well, you never know if that's going to be something bad. And in the previous generation, if you wanted to open a PDF file, you had to go back into the system to open up the reader. Well, now the reader is part of the a part of the SureClick solution. And we're going to extend that to Microsoft Office apps, so Word, PowerPoint, Excel, just to provide that level of protection. And there's some great reporting. There's a dashboard. There's a live tracker that can tell you the sites that you visited, how many were good, how many were not good. And so it's something that can be measured and tracked not only from an end user level, but from an IT level as well. So that's one. And then quickly, the other one is SureRun. And SureRun is really an extension of SureStart, only it's providing protection in the OS. So if you think about phishing, someone clicks on a link that's bad, malware wants to come into the system, okay? It often wants to go in and turn off your antivirus or your firmware.
Yeah.
Once it can do that, it can be more persistent, it can go into other areas. So what SureRun does, again, is it's similar to SureStart in that it's a monitor. All it's doing is looking at these key processes like AV and firewall. If it sees that it goes off, it turns it back on. And then it alerts the IT and the end user. So, and if it's the malware is written in a way that once it sees it goes off and does a circular thing, it will keep, SureRun will keep seeing those changes and will restore it. So again, if you think about SureStart and SureRun, they're really monitoring for these deviations. So it doesn't matter if it's malware that is out there today or something that hasn't been created or released yet. We're taking a very proactive stance and position when it comes to security, as opposed to reacting to events that happen. And that's part of the benefit of having hardware-enforced security.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, it is time to switch gears to our next segment. That's right. We're bringing back our fantasy security draft. So let's kick it on over to Chelsea, who will explain the rules.
Hey, thanks, Justin. That's right. We do have our endpoint security fantasy draft coming up. The way it's going to work is Brian and Rick are each going to take turns picking out their preferred solution until they have a top-of-the-line endpoint security solution team. So it's pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is we're going to have all of the options listed for you folks on the screen at home, so you can play along and mix and match. But without further ado, I think we should just jump right into the game. Because IT pros are definitely the king of everything here at Spiceworks, we're going to have Brian choose first. So let's get those options.
Do you want to read them off first, Chelsea?
Sure, I can read them off.
Yes.
As you can see, they're on the screen here. We've got application whitelisting, biometric authentication, SureView, cloud backup, SureRun, encrypted hard drive, DLP, VPN, SureStart, SureRecovery, SureClick, and antivirus. Brian, you've got a lot to pick from here, but what is your first round pick going to be?
I'll take biometric authentication.
All right.
Why?
That's an interesting
Why?
pick for number one.
Because with multi-factor authentication, about 99% of phishing gets stopped before it gets started. There's no easy way that SMS hack, they can intercept your two-factor authentication. Well, so what? You're still way safer with multi-factor authentication.
Okay. All right. Rick, what is your next pick?
I'm going to be a homer. Well, I have to be a homer, right? I'm paid to be a homer here, so I'm going to go with SureStart.
SureStart. Okay. Why did you pick that one for your?
Because SureStart is really backed by our endpoint security controller, and that's what makes the whole hardware enforced strategy work for us. So whether it's SureStart, SureRun, it provides a root of trust for SureClick. I look at it as the utility player on my team, but very important.
All right, Brian. Oh, well, no, let's go back to
my
Brian.
turn.
Brian, let's go back to you. What is your next pick?
I'll take SureRecover.
SureRecover.
I know.
Okay.
You left it for me.
What was your reason for that?
So, like Rick was saying, proactive is better than reactive. Remediation is reactive. If you have a compromised system, you're not going to leave it, it's fixed, it's remediated. You got to flatten it. You got to take it back to zero and start again. And that's something that I can have done in the field now. I can tell my 60-year-old plumbing superintendent, hey, push this button, push that button, hit enter, and wait for 30 minutes. I'll take it.
All right. Rick, we'll take yours next.
I will take I will take SureView for 300.
SureView for 300. All right. Why'd you pick that one?
Well, again, it goes back to that underrated, underappreciated, I guess, visual hacking. I think it's a bigger problem than what most people think. Again, it's like when you drive down the interstate and you see an accident, you got to look. Well, if you're on a plane and you see somebody's PC or phone open, you got to look. I want to protect against that, and I think that more happens in that area than what people give it credit.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's do one more round each, I think. So Brian will have one more pick from you.
I'll take VPN.
VPN. Okay. All right. I think it's a safe, solid choice, but talk to me about that.
Again, mobile workers, the temptation to use the Wi-Fi at Panera or the Denver airport or wherever. It gives me hives to think about that. So if you're going to use publicly accessible services like that, please at least use a VPN once you're fired up. Personally, VPNs are getting to be a big thing. A number of my technical guys are all using personal VPNs. You can, $50 for a lifetime service. So I think awareness of the value of VPNs is rising.
Okay. All right. And Rick, your final pick. It's a big one.
Yeah, it is. I'm going back and forth on a couple. I think I'll take SureClick.
SureClick, okay.
And the reason why I say that is because phishing is still the #1 problem that we have with regards to security, cybersecurity, in terms of an entry point. Employees not knowing it, the whole education thing. This is a backup, right? This helps prevent that and minimize that. So all it takes is one bad link and it can be problems. So.
Okay. All right. Well, so there you got it. So Brian, you've got biometric authentication, SureRecover VPN. Rick, you've got SureStart, SureClick, and SureView. Wow, you went full Homer.
I did, absolutely.
You're like the guy that takes like all Eagles in his fantasy league.
What's interesting, Justin, is that I asked in chat what some of the first round picks would be, and biometric came up.
Okay.
But there are some options that weren't even chosen that were first round picks for Spiceheads in chat, like DLP and application whitelisting.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting that.
It's a deep draft.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I think, viable early picks that you can take. All right, let's walk through a couple scenarios that I've prepared. Well, actually, first of all, who do you guys think has the better team? Do you guys feeling pretty confident?
I think it all depends on who the person is, right, and what they do.
Yeah.
How's that for?
Good answer.
All right, scenario number 1. Your organization gets hit. Someone tries to spoof your CEO's email and send an email out saying, hey, make sure to click on this company-wide presentation that everyone needs to look at. And what it does is it disables the antivirus on your computer and installs another process that mimics that antivirus, but what it does instead is it is mining Spicecoin, which is a cryptocurrency that Chelsea and I are working on. We're not gonna take anything from you. We're just gonna mine some Spicecoin on your machines. What do you guys think? How comfortable are you guys with your teams? Can we pull up our teams again? So Brian, we'll start with you. How did your
I lose to Rick's team.
Talk to me why. Yeah.
Well, between SureClick, that just will stop that being an issue to begin with. I mean that it's dead right there in that process. He wins.
Rick, do you agree?
I think.
Don't be nice.
Yes. Well, I think it really is a step back further than that. There's an earlier step, and it goes back to that education thing and clicking on links. If I had to pick some protection, though, SureClick is obviously a good first round.
You feel like your team holds up well against that?
I feel like I do okay in that scenario.
Okay. All right. We'll do one more before we go to questions. We'll kind of flip things around. Your CEO is off to make a big presentation. travels to Seattle to meet up with some potential investors and partners. Decides to go to the airport and sign on to 100% free hotspot Wi-Fi and in the airport, and download the company presentation from his or her email, and is sitting on the plane, just editing away, and goes to Panera Bread once they lands at Seattle and sends it back to his or her partner and says, hey, take a look at these changes and let me know what you guys think. What do you guys, how comfortable are you guys with that scenario?
I think my team would win with the VPN component, but your team is okay in terms of the seatmate situation.
Yeah, I think in this case, VPN is, and having that multi-factor authentication and being able to, have those 2-3 factors that I can go in, VPN being one of them, really will protect you in that environment. I just saw a list earlier this week, of the top 10 airports that are the least secure in terms of wireless.
Oh, really?
That stuff scares me.
Who was, do you remember someone?
Well, Hobby in Houston was one of them. I think Phoenix was
Sky Harbor.
one, Sky Harbor, and so it was an interesting list. But San Diego, I think, was number one.
Okay.
And Lindbergh Field was
Shout out
number
to San
one.
Diego.
Yeah.
They have a
So,
lot of military out there.
But
so.
you think about that. That's really an issue. You never know.
All right. Well, there you guys have it. Thank you guys so much for playing along with Fantasy Security Draft. And see, Rick was scared. He was like, I'm going to get killed.
The IT
Brian's
guy's
going to kill me.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no winner because, first of all, there is no winner. And then second of all, it's impossible to, prepare for this kind of stuff. So thank you guys for playing along. I think Chelsea had posted about this game to our community. So let's check back in with her and see what people had to say.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, so earlier this week, I posted a poll in the community asking you, the Spiceheads, what would your number one draft pick be for an endpoint security solution? We've got 413 votes, and here are the top 3. So in third place, we had encrypted hard drive. That was with, let me see what the percentage is of the vote. That was with 11% of the vote. Coming in with 20% of the vote, we have application whitelisting, which I
Yeah, it seems to
also
be really popular.
saw mentioned in chat. And then our number one pick with 38% of the vote goes to antivirus.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And I think what's most interesting is that these 3 solutions that Spiceheads picked didn't make it onto any of the teams.
Yeah. Well,
What do you guys
like
think?
I said, it's a deep draft and it's really hard to. There's always a lot of good.
We only had
options
3 rounds.
Yes, exactly. That's the other thing is we only had 3 rounds. So
Yeah.
Antivirus almost worthless now.
Great. So are you guys ready for some questions?
yes, let's take it away.
All right. As Lee Young, my fellow Spice worker who's hanging out in chat and helping me vet these questions, can attest to, chat is blowing up. Q&A, we've
We
got
want
a
those
ton
monitors.
of questions. So let's just get started with that. Our first question is coming in from Jake Corbello. This question is for you, Rick. For budget-restricted organizations, what security technologies would you suggest the organization prioritize? For example, include IDS, IPS, email security, etc.
I think email security would be on the top of the list in terms of those 3 that you listed. But I think if you look at what HP offers from a hardware enforced perspective, it's a great value because it doesn't cost you any more. It's built into it's built in, not bolted on. You don't have to invest more in there. So I would say email protection is obviously very important, but then if you package it all together with HP's hardware enforced solutions, I think
And ProBooks are getting some of those features now.
We're starting to move it down the stack.
Business
and,
affordable.
And it's not just on notebooks,
Mobile
right?
devices.
It goes across workstations. It goes across our Elite desks. So it's really, it's not just notebooks. It's across our entire line.
Brian, what would you say as far as initial investments for a small team of IT for security?
I agree. Email security, email vector is huge. If you have a Windows domain and you have group policy, the ability to deploy a group policy, then things like software restriction policies, the Spicehead vote that had application whitelisting, that's probably way more overhead than a small shop is going to be able to manage. But you can put some restriction policies in place. But having the hardware not suck time out of whatever IT team you have is a big deal. And using things that you pay for once rather than endless subscription is also a budget factor for a lot of shops.
Okay, all right, Chelsea, let's keep on going.
Alrighty, this next one is in from Trent the Gent. What's up, Trent? Trent wants to know, is user education or antivirus more important?
They're not even close.
It's not even close. I think you want to say it first?
Yeah, user education way more significant.
And we really, there's a lot to be done there. I would say in the short term, antivirus is really important because that's what's going to catch those mistakes.
But it's reactive.
But the reality is it's all on the people that's using it, and they have to be aware. That's where it starts. That's where we have to do a much better job.
Brian, you agree?
I mean, I have, like I said, I have a lot of smart users, really, people who are very task focused. They're not going to be, the more you share with your users, the more they know about what are reasonable precautions to take. You're getting leverage for the rest of their careers. Antivirus is just so reactive now and so limited in what it can handle. Your 0-day exploits can be 2-week exploits. You're gonna be cleaning up after the fact. So education is first.
All right, Chelsea, let's keep it going.
Alrighty, this one is in from Hiking Mountains, aka Michael. End user training is important in today's computing environment. Can the panelists share some examples of how they get end users involved in security awareness?
Oh, this is good.
Yeah.
So I've talked to a number of companies about this. We've got some extremes. I've talked to one company in the Midwest where they're putting together their playbook right now. Well, they just put it together, and it was a result of an incident.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
So they're reacting to that incident. But what they've done is they've put a program in place where every new hire coming through takes cybersecurity training. The test is purposely made hard. This isn't one of those things that you just click through and you pass, you get credit for
Check
it.
the box.
You actually have to get like a 80% or higher to pass. The second thing is they have a 3-strike policy. So first time you get caught phishing, it's shame on you, repeat the class. Second time, it's tell your boss's boss. Third time is you're gone.
Really? So for failing a phishing test, not even like getting phished, but like just failing the security?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and that's because people who click on a bad link, are more likely to click on bad links in the future.
It's true.
And if you are in that situation, or you're in that type of environment where you're dealing with confidential data, you cannot afford to not have your employees.
The organizational cost is so high
Yeah.
when you have a problem. I just use bribes.
Money bribes or like
No, but
chocolate
like
bribes?
I said, smart. Actually, See's Candy Gold Foil Suckers. I got a fundraiser box from one of my son's school's fundraisers. I just bought the whole 48-pack box. And my users are sharp and they're paranoid, which is great. And so I'll get someone who sends an email to the team and says, "Hey, this is suspicious. I know this guy, or I know this vendor, but this is not what I expect to see from them." And we get a lot of phishing emails that are compromises of cloud-hosted email, and they'll have legit signatures in there with real phone numbers, and they'll send it in, and then I'll say, "This is great, thank you. You're the gold star winner for security for today," and send an email around letting people know, "Hey, this vendor got compromised. Please let me know. It was caught by so and so, and she's getting a sucker for not being a sucker."
Nice. Oh, that's good. I like that.
So I got a question for you two, and it's based on comment. The lead up first is I was visiting a client, and they do regular cyber security phishing tests within their company, big company. And so they did their test. Guess who the #1 offender was within that organization?
CEO?
Executives, yeah.
CEO is what people think. It was their IT group. It was their IT team. They were the #1 offenders. So I have all these guys sitting around me, looking at the table, going. And I said, we're just a curious bunch, So everyone thinks it's the execs, but in this case, it was the IT guys. So nobody is immune from phishing. You're right.
All right, Chelsea, let's get some more questions.
That's pretty wild. And definitely unexpected. Okay, Native Texan. Hey, what's up, Native? Has a question. What keeps code from being injected into hardware? Also, with the continuous Intel vulnerabilities, are companies considering going with, AMD?
That's an interesting question. I'd say on the vulnerabilities, the rule of thumb there is patch. When those patches come out, you make sure that you're keeping up with them. It's an industry-wide thing. It just doesn't impact HP. It impacts us all. So when Intel comes out with those patches, we need to do it. With regards to AMD or Intel, I think it all depends on how you use the product. What do you want to use it for? So it's very use case driven, and I'll leave it at that because I think that's what it boils down to.
I like the AMD offerings right now. Their value for performance that's great in terms of protecting them from those hardware vulnerabilities. Some of the things we see are inherent in the architecture. So I haven't seen exploits for those yet, but you're not really going to sidestep everything just because you switch from x86 on Intel to x86 on AMD. In terms of patching some of the AMT vulnerabilities and things like that, just are very distressing. And geez, what do you do besides just patch the snot out of everything all the time?
I think fortunately that with the Intel situation is that they've got the white hatters out there that are finding these, right? They took a proactive approach to it. They're the ones that are finding it and coming out and making those
disclosing after notification though.
Yes, so it's not like they're coming the back way, the bad way.
All right, Chelsea, let's keep on going.
Alrighty. We have some feature-related questions. The first one is in from Taheen. What's up, Tim? Taheen wants to know, how does HP SureView impact battery life?
It does impact battery life, and it ranges. It's like MPG on a car, right? Depending on the features that you have, how you run your PC, what you run the brightness at, it will have an impact. It does not, by going into privacy mode, it does not extend battery life because it uses some extra
energy to twist that.
Exactly. So it will have an impact. It's very hard to pinpoint it down onto what that exact percent or.
But it's not that.
It's not like half or anything.
No, it's not. It's not that great. I think of when you use SureView that you use it in burst mode. So I'm leaving the office. Boom, it's on. I'm on a plane. Boom. I'm in a meeting with a lot of vendors sitting around the table. It's on. And I'm sitting at my desk. It's not on. When I'm down in my basement or if I'm in my
living room,
she shed, I love that term that I see in the commercials, I don't need it. So you can manage it.
Okay. All right.
So a quick follow-up to that from Tim. Is there a way to enforce SureView while the laptop is plugged in but not while on battery?
You can enforce SureView through policies within HP Client Security Manager and within our manageability integration kit through SCCM, and then there are also BIOS settings that you can set too. I would say the most effective is through Client Security Manager and then also through our MIK product. But yeah, you can go in and set those.
Okay. All right. Chelsea, what other questions we got?
Okay.
These are good questions.
As always.
All right, we've got another good one coming in from Sick Vale. Sick Vale wants to know, how does SureStart recover the BIOS?
How does it doesn't actually in a fundamental way, SureStart is a monitor, right? And when it sees any deviation to the BIOS, it does go to work. So what it does is it uses the endpoint security controller. The endpoint security controller, in combination with SureStart, sees that there's a problem with the BIOS. It immediately quarantines that BIOS, and then we have a cryptographically secure signed copy of the latest BIOS that's stored on the endpoint security controller. And then once you've quarantined it, then it replaces that bad BIOS with the good BIOS, and it does it just instantly. So I guess I think that might answer his question.
I think so. And if not, Sig, please send us a follow-up question in Q&A.
Okay.
All right, ready
Let's
for
keep going, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a ton of questions, so I can keep going for days over here. Our next one is from Michael7140 Hertz.
Michael.
What's up, Michael?
Hi, Michael.
Fellow HP hero there.
Michael wants to know, Sure Recover. How does one recover their data out in the field in the event of if an OS crashes? Does this blank slate the machine to an image, or is there some additional options for recovery before wipe/refresh?
Well, to me, that goes back to some, I want to say common sense, but basically we're not going to restore your data. If you haven't backed up your data, we can't help you there. We can help you restore the image, but we don't back up your data. So that's something that you need to
Higher
do.
level
Now,
function.
a lot of people, they store on their local drive, right? You got to get into the habit of backing up, whether your company supports cloud or whether you've got the ability to VPN it, or Sure Recover's not going to recover your data.
Harsh words will prevent data loss, in my experience.
Harsh words.
Don't keep stuff on your machine. That's what this drive letter is for. So it's...
All right. Chelsea, I think we got time for a couple more.
Okay, I hope so.
Yep.
This one's in from Jeremy R. SPS, can the local Sure Recover image be customized, or would a custom image have to come over the network?
It works in two ways. One, when it goes to when the line goes to HP.com, you're getting the latest image that we offer, the most current. If it's going to the customer site, what it's doing there is it's pulling down what you put on it. So it's going to have the most current image that you meant, because it's going to an FTP site or some other site, and you connect it with an agent, so that makes it secure. So the two are talking to each other in a very secure environment, and so the image that comes across is your image.
Well, maybe he's asking about, is it the 1030, the new 1030 has a local store for the image?
Well, it doesn't store the image itself. It enables the connection without the wire.
Oh, gotcha.
So.
All right, Chelsea, let's get one more question.
One more question. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, let's make it a good one. This one is from B. Scott King. B wants to know, what are some of your favorite software tools to supplement hardware security and antivirus?
Remote management tools, definitely. Not cheap, and we've had some blow-ups in the forums about vendor pricing changes.
Yes.
But the remote management, remote control is invaluable. We're way past the PC Anywhere days. Probably no one even remembers that, but us. Yeah. But that's critical toolkit.
I agree. I mean, I think that's what I would. He's in this every day, right? So I'm out there talking about the products themselves. I think one area that is important is the analytics. Right? Being able to go in and actually analyze the data that's coming in to help you make the right decisions on what to do.
And to know what happened.
And to know what happened. Yep.
All right, guys. Well, there you guys have it. Thank you for asking all those great questions. It is time to start wrapping up the show. Wanted to offer you guys an opportunity to share final thoughts or advice. Brian, we'll start with you. So for folks that are watching today, want to better incorporate security into their PC decisions, any advice for them?
Start at the bottom and work to the top, because your users are at the top. They're the people that you're enabling their productivity. They're the people you're working for. But if you start with the hardware layer and start making decisions at that layer, you're building a good foundation for the software layers you're putting on top of that. Like I said, I'm doing a refresh because of the Windows 7 EOL, and it's really very attractive to be able to put baked-in security as you roll out new devices. I'm very relieved to have that option.
Great. And Rick, any final thoughts from you?
I think of a story here, right? When I try to tie this all together, and it really is from City Slickers, which was a movie that came out probably before some of our Spiceheads were born, but it was in 1991, and it was Billy Crystal and Jack Palance. Jack Palance was Curly. Mitch was played by Billy Crystal, and there was one moment in the film where they're riding along, and Mitch asks Curly, "What's the meaning of life?" And I'm paraphrasing here, but Curly says, "One thing." And Mitch asks, of course, "Well, what is that one thing?" And Curly says, "That's for you to figure out." Well, I feel like with security, we've asked IT that's for you to figure out. And so what we're trying to do is be that trusted guide, that trail guide that can help you along the way, so that you can focus on other things. So ultimately, I think that one thing boils down to, and it's the title of our presentation, is every PC decision is a security decision. And when you look at HP, we do have the world's most secure and manageable PCs and printers. It's really important that we keep that in mind, and it goes outside of PCs, right? I mean, routers and anything that you connect to your endpoint is important. So every technology decision really becomes a security decision. So that's the one thing.
All right. Very cool. All right. Well, there you guys have it. It's time to check back in with Chelsea and find out who's walking away with some prizes. Chelsea, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Justin. Yes, we have tons of prizes that we're giving away today. And boy, are you in luck, Spiceheads. Let's start with our swag item. HP is hooking up a few lucky Spiceheads whose questions I asked live on the air. So those are those folks that submitted questions via Q&A. I asked your question live, you're put in the running. We've got 3 of these to give away. This is the HP Thunderbolt Dock G2. It's a universal docking station. As you can see, it's compact. It has Bang & Olufsen speaker, so this can double as a speaker or a speaker phone. And it's got tons of ports in the back here. Universally compatible, like I said. You can use multiple types of laptops or monitors with this little guy right here. This is going out to 3 lucky Spiceheads, and those Spiceheads are Hiking Mountains, Jay Corbello, and Sixth Vale. Congratulations. You got yourself an HP Thunderbolt Dock G2. And then our grand prize, which is going out to 2 very lucky attendees of today's show. That is the Omen 32-inch LED monitor. Again, I feel like this is really great for the gamer in you. So for those IT pros out there who want to get their hands on this, only 2 will win. And those are GRX and K Banatwawia. Man, I butchered that one. So I'm definitely going to put all of those winners' names in chat because I know the last one probably everyone's like, that's not a
no one
word.
understood you. You're
That's not a name. But I'm going to put all the winners' names in chat momentarily, just for those of you that may have missed it or maybe didn't understand what I was saying. And of course, what we need you to do, to all of you winners, please email us your contact information to ontheair@spiceworks.com. That's the only way we're going to know how to hook you up with your prizes. That's really all that I got. Thank you for hanging out with me and Lee in chat, for voting in the poll and participating in the security draft. We always have a blast with you guys. So I hope you have a spicy day. I'm going to send it back over to Justin for closing.
All right, congratulations to all of our big winners, as well as thank you to our guests, Brian and Rick. Can't wait to get you guys back again next time. Also, big thank you to HP for sponsoring today's show.
Thank you.
All right, guys, well, we will be back here on Friday for a very special Sysadmin Day episode of On the Air. You're not going to want to miss that. We got a lot of surprises in store for you. There's a podcast drop It should be in your feed now, so make sure to check that out. We'll be interviewing our guests so you can get to meet them before the show. But for more information on that episode and all things on the air, make sure to follow us in the community at community.spiceworks.com/ontheair. And until next time, guys, stay safe, keep it spicy, and we'll see you guys back here next time. So long, everyone.